course, as tough as it gets. It's the proverbial roller coaster going uphill and downhill many times a day, many times an hour sometimes. And now if we added that more complicated dimension of special conditions or special needs, just imagine how much tougher it gets. The onus is always on parents. We're the ones who are told to watch our children, keep alert for signs, for symptoms, open the doors of communication, keep up the communication. But who's watching the parents? On the eve of World Mental Health Day, October 10, and of course the beginning of the World Mental Health Week, we thought this is a conversation that definitely needs to happen. And I couldn't think of anyone better to answer this question and to bring up a different perspective to this topic than Dr. Shelja Sen. And she has an incredible amount of experience working with parents and children in the area of mental health and wellness. She's a therapist, writer, co-founder, Children First. She's a TED speaker, a columnist with Indian Express, very well known for her initiatives to create an inclusive and supportive community where every child should be well taken care of. So thank you so much for joining us, Shelja, and welcome to Let's Talk with Parul.
Hello to all the moms and Mom Presso, and looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you. Also sharing her experiences with us is Anupama Bakshi. She's a parent and educator. After a long stint as a teacher, she has now moved to the learning solutions industry in an editorial profile. She's the mother of two awesome children, Nikita, who's 23, and Pranav, who's 18. We'll get to know a little more about them in the course of this discussion. And Nikita's tryst with depression and Pranav's autism made her value and respect the indomitable spirit of both. So that is something we're saluting today, courage, parenting with courage. So let me start with you, Shelja. I talked about who's watching the parents. That was one question that I asked. And the narrative is normally about the children, especially children who have special needs or special requirements, going through maybe various kinds of mental health disorders, illnesses. At that time, what do you think the parents of those children are going through, and how are they coping?
Well, I think, like you mentioned, parenting itself is a journey. Yeah, it's a journey which helps us grow up. I think I like to say that it's not our children who are growing up; they are helping us grow up to become more sensitive, mindful human beings, and that's true for all parents. And I think when you have a child who's going through some mental health difficulty or is non-neurotypical, when I say non-neurotypical, it could be a child who has ADHD, autism, learning difficulties, who's wired differently. Then the challenges for the parent can be much higher. And I would also like to add that yes, the journey of struggle and hardship is there. However, many parents I have met, including Anupama, I would say it also helps them to dig deep and find such amazing stories of courage, amazing spirit. You use the word indomitable spirit. I think that's what I see in a lot of parents who have been through this journey. And yes, and it's always such an honor to witness these stories.
So do you feel this is something which, like they say, necessity is the mother of invention?
Yeah.
So parents who are in a tougher situation than most,
yes,
where does this come from? This courage, the spirit, the fight?
I think it's a journey, and I'm sure Anupama will tell us more about it. Initially, I think like all parents, when you have a child, you have a dream. Of having this child, a perfect child who will go to school, excel, look in a particular way, do things in a particular way, go to a particular college, and you put all your dreams on the child. And initially when parents find out that the child might have a difficulty, is not wired in a neurotypical way, or the child might dip into depression, a child who's doing very well and suddenly goes into depression or anxiety, initially the parents' reaction could be of not really being able to accept, and that's okay. That's the first step. That's the first step of the journey, to really not be able to understand and think, what's happening? This can't be happening to me.
What did I do?
What did I do wrong? There could be embarrassment, there could be shame, there could be embarrassment, there could be denial.
Sure.
However, the journey kind of continues, and I think many parents, they are able to find and process this journey to be able to be advocates for their children,
Right.
to be activists in this field, and to move from that position of hopelessness to finding hope, and to help so many,
So
give
many
back
others.
so many other parents and children. Yeah.
Anupama, let's bring you into the conversation now. Actually, just without any other introduction, I'd like you to tell us about your story, about your children, about your journey.
Okay, so like Shelja was talking about, that concept of a perfect child. First I want to say that we can always find that perfection in imperfections. If any diagnosis or condition is or disorder is an imperfection, so to say. So I would like to believe that my children are perfect. The disorder or the diagnosis
Right.
nevertheless, and I'm a very proud parent of Nikita, 23, and Rana, who's 19 actually. And of course, I think it's about how we like to perceive it and how we like to project it. It's not that I'm a victim of, I've never thought like that here is Nikita, my, beautiful, intelligent girl who actually got a diagnosis of depression. How could she? Or, how is it that Pranav had autism, his diagnosis came much earlier. So these are situations that, it's like crossroads, and you face that situation and you deal with it to the best of your ability. And I personally feel, yes, parents need to be empowered and whatever, they need to be also helped, but at that moment, it's about the child. Because I remember you also sharing with me once, if the parent is empowered, if the parent is, able to deal with it, that gives the child so much confidence. I know for a fact that it's very important for my daughter that I am in a position where I'm empowered, I'm able, in fact, take care of myself, not in the sense that I need to be taken care of, but that I am fine. That will be a source of so much of comfort to her. And of course, it's like a deluge. Maybe it comes, and then you know how to keep your head above the water, and then definitely the water will pass. And then obviously, the rest is how you help your child develop those coping mechanisms and be there for the child unconditionally. Give the child space. That okay, this is the way child feels right now. No, but I think this is not the way, and this should be the way. I've also learned along the way that the child's perception, the child's situation, circumstance is very important. And we should be like, my daughter went to Australia. I never thought that she's going thousands of miles away and she should be here with me and I should be here to protect her. I don't think that happened, and in fact that did so much of good, because she was able to live independently, find her moorings, find her roots, find a new life, and I'm very proud of her because she's really doing very well now. Besides her master's, she's got a brilliant job in autism spectrum Australia. And Pranav, in his own way, is finding a space for himself. Yes, maybe my support for Pranav was more, naturally considering his disorder. But again, the dreams and aspirations were his. I was just there behind him because he wanted to be a model, and there was just no precedent I could find.
Right.
But then, we did it, and we kind of moved mountains. That's not really an understatement.
Right.
And we did it.
But so tell me something. You mentioned that you've never thought of yourself as a victim. But when initially, right at the beginning, when you got to know of, for example, Nikita's diagnosis, at that time, what was your first reaction? I mean, as a parent who's done everything possible, like we all do, make sure that you're giving your child the best, and you make sure that there's nothing that the child wants. So when you're, faced with a situation where you find out that your child is going through severe depression, what was your first reaction?
Okay, in her case, hopefully this depression was not severe, but yeah, there was depression.
Sure.
There was a diagnosis. So first of all, yes, I will admit there's a kind of feeling of guilt. Could I have done something more? Could I have? If that happens even in a neurological diagnosis like autism, I'm sure of other mothers feeling the same, because I felt the same. Would I have done something more? So definitely when the diagnosis is depression and there's so much of hush things about it and people don't
Nobody
like
wants to talk about it.
it. And although I'm very glad that lately people are talking about, and you should hear the kind of reactions I've heard myself, so and so talking about depression and as if, this thing, and everybody goes to depression and this and that. So, I have been a silent, a fly on the wall when these conversations are also happening. So main thing is, yes, I went through the guilt, and obviously you go through that feeling of, okay, this is this humongous task that is there of helping your child. But what I did, I very quickly, I won't say I turned into a positive narrative, because then that's denial, right? That okay, this is not there and we're all fine. But we got into, all three of us, Pranav, Nikita and I think we have this kind of rapport amongst ourselves. We go into working on it mode. Quickly, maybe we learned that with Pranav. Here's the situation, deal with it. Even with Nikita, because more than me, she herself was willing to deal with it. I mean, I would give the credit all to her. I was just there, right beside her, right behind her, telling her, I'm with you, you doing fine, you're wonderful. Because in spite of that diagnosis, which will probably make you sit in the room and cry buckets and all those typical things, yes, it happens when you have depression. But then there was always this side of her which wanted to be herself, which wanted to explore, which wanted to make her do well and study and explore horizons, and she was doing that and I was right behind her. So for us, it was like we are all there for each other. It's literally one for all and one for all and all for one amongst three of us. Seriously. And yeah, so whether there was a setback for Pranav, okay, this is how we deal with it. Whether it was with Nikita, this is how we deal with it. And both my kids are very mindful about how mom is doing. Randomly, I get a message from Nikita, how are you? So I know that she's just worried. So I tell her I'm actually fine, and I tell her 10 things that make me fine. So this is how we can build a positive narrative around it, and I think we can deal with it more effectively rather than you feel it hits you, but then you can't be in a state of inertia after that. You really need to get going, and that's what works.
I think that's part of my answer already when I asked who's looking after the parents. It's those very children who the parents are looking after.
Yes,
and that happens when you build such a positive, strong circle of trust and the communication between all of you. Tell us a little more about Pranav's achievements, because we were just talking about a TEDx.
Yes, he's just done a TEDx. In fact, a couple of TEDx talks are in the pipeline also. So I was telling him that, and he just did. He was just last week we were in Mumbai and he was a keynote speaker at IIT, and it was surreal for me watching him speak. Because when you think of IIT, you think of all the super brains, and when they tell me that we're very inspired, and when everybody was wanting to get pictures clicked with him, and I saw people who were very moved with what he spoke. And he speaks from his heart, and he speaks the truth, and he really. So again, I really want to bring up this. See. Say if I look at both my kids, for me they're fantastic, absolutely beautiful, brilliant children.
Yes.
So when this thing comes, suffer from depression, suffer from autism. So we are very averse to this,
To
Probably,
this terminology.
yeah. And I'm not saying we build this wall because we don't want to touch anything that bothers us. This needs to collapse. And Pranav has addressed this. Because Pranav has asked us that while you and Nikita, he's asked both of us, you tell me I have a superpower like Marvel characters, and then Google says I suffer. And Hindi, it gets worse. Autism se peedit. That gets so worse because there's been so much of coverage on Pranav in the vernacular press, and I'm hiding those articles. I don't want Pranav to read them. Because, although peedit and suffer mean the same, still,
the nuances are just stronger.
I mean, nothing against the vernacular, thing, but representations. But we need to be more. We need to be more sensitive. Somebody out there is reading it. Somebody with depression is doing so well somewhere, and that same person reads suffer from autism. We need to be. If we don't, we don't need to be extra positive about situations and challenges, but we need to present them as they are. It's like work in progress. Here is a diagnosis, here is a situation, we'll work on it, we'll get there. I mean, nothing is impossible, right?
I think at some level we're all guilty of using these terms and all without thinking.
Suffering from
I
cancer.
think
I'm
it's
glad
very
you brought it
important.
up.
It's
Yeah.
very important the kind of language we use
Yeah,
around
sure.
mental health, that a person is suffering from it. Because, like, I believe, and this comes from the narrative practice I follow, the person is not the problem is the problem. And there's a third aspect of it, the problem is not personal, problem is social. So if you see depression is not, like, even if we take an example of any young person, Nikita, anybody, the problem is not because there's something wrong with her, or there's somewhere there's a deficit. I know there's a lot of talk about neurochemical changes and all that. But basically we have to understand what young people are going through. I mean, mental health, if you see the numbers right now, in young people, 1 in 4 are struggling with depression or anxiety. Like 400,
Yes.
and 50% of mental health problems begin before the age of 14. Suicide rates are highest in the world, in India.
Right.
And so if you see all these numbers, they're scary. So
Absolutely.
we can't say our children are broken. Somewhere there's a problem with our children. It's because our society is broken.
So
The
when that's
problem
what you
is
mean,
social.
yes.
The problem is social. If you see what's at the core of it, the core of it is, you see young people, there is a sense of disconnection. They might be connected 24/7 on their mobiles, whatever,
Right.
but there's a sense of disconnection. There's a sense of lack of, it could be disconnection with family, in the society, in relationships. It could be a sense of lack of meaning and purpose.
Right.
And also very artificial lives we are leading. Very artificial lives. So a lot of this socializing which is happening on social media, and a lot of, biggest issue right now we are facing is the constant comparison between, on social media.
Absolutely.
So that is a huge issue.
The projecting
So
of something.
again,
which
it's
is not-
very important for us to widen the lens and look at the problem as not the person. Person doesn't have the problem. So when you say the person is suffering from depression or suffering from anxiety or suffering from an OCD or eating disorder, you're taking the wrong picture. It's actually the society is suffering. The whole society is suffering, and children in any society, when the society is going through something like this, children will be impacted. I use this metaphor
Right.
sometimes, that they are like the canaries of our times. Olden times, in coal mines, they would send canaries down to check the oxygen level, and if the die means the oxygen level is low. So that's what's happening with the children. The level of mental health problems is rising. It's not because they're weak or they are fragile or they can't cope.
But their environment is
It's
such.
fine, and we have to look at them. This is like the pollution we face in Delhi.
Yes, absolutely.
We are swimming in it. So when there is a pollution problem, somebody has asthma, you don't say there's a deficit or this person is something wrong with.
Yeah.
You look at the pollution, you fix the pollution. You don't fix the, just the one
The
child.
One child, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a very, very important point that you made. It's time to flip the narrative.
Yes.
We're always looking at the child, at the problem
Yes.
per se. We're not looking at what is creating the problem.
The child has not been strong enough. I've heard that.
Of course.
I mean, it's
Be strong, get over
Ah.
it. We've discussed these things before,
I know.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very, very cold, kind of
Yeah.
indifferent kind of
I mean,
attitudes
if
that
you
people
ask
have.
me, I haven't seen a person stronger than, at least I can talk for my daughter. I mean, you take everything in your stride and make a beautiful life out of what you get
What you
and
have.
in another country, and manage everything all by yourself.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so I'm sure that's happening to others also with this so-called diagnosis.
Shelja, I wanted to ask you, when we're talking about parents, and I broached the subject with Anupama as well, that, from the beginning, when you get, say, a diagnosis or when you're told that there is something atypical, like you mentioned, so what are the mistakes that parents typically tend to make at that stage, especially at that stage and probably even going
When a
further?
person the child has been diagnosed with depression or
With depression, with any kind of special circumstances, whether it's special needs, and anything which is out of the ordinary. And I mean, parents tend to take it very personally, like you mentioned. What else are we doing wrong?
So I think I use the 3Ds.
Yes.
The 3Ds when I talk about sometimes the way parents might react.
Right.
All of us might react. I just don't want to blame the parents here. All of us adults react because it's very easy to get into that mode. And the 3Ds are, first is dismissing. When you dismiss the child's problem and say, you got to, like you're saying, you got to be stronger, snap out of it.
Right.
Don't create so much of drama around it.
Right.
And your depression is carried on for 6 months, 1 year. Now you need to get out of it. So we dismiss the thing and we just think the child is trying to seek attention. And I hear this all the time. The second D is when you start dumping. Anything the child is going through. Suppose a child has had a difficult day at school, or has had a fight with a friend, or there's been something else a child is struggling with, and we start dumping it. Oh, this is because of depression. We're not able to understand we have to let go of all these labels we carry in our head of autism, ADHD, which is important. We do. I mean, as a psychologist, I do diagnose because to make schools, universities, society understand this child is struggling.
But that's a diagnosis. That's not an identity.
That's right. But we have to understand that in many ways, depression, anxiety is a human condition. We go through it, and I think I have openly talked about it in my book. Openly I talk about it that I've been through depression myself. And yes, once you've been through depression, I think your worldview changes. I always thought depression happened to other people. I'm a psychologist, I'm a therapist. How can I go through it? And it's like people who are different, not like me. It's only when you go through it you realize what it does to a person, and it changes you. And like anything a person with depression is going through, to dump it and say, oh, this is because of depression. Or you're looking irritated, angry because of depression. You can't cope with this because of depression. So everything you dump on depression. Third is defining the person, making that a single story for that person. This happens a lot in schools. Oh, this person bipolar, this person ADHD, this person dyscalculia, this person autism. And that becomes a single story of that person. This person has eating disorder. And that's all the person is, that's the single lens the person is seeing. And it happens at home also, that sometimes a single story is the story that the person carries. So that's something we need to be very aware of. Parents, teachers, adults, even therapists, even psychiatrists can end up doing that, seeing the person as a single story. So these are the three. Dismissing, dumping, and defining.
That's so well articulated, absolutely. And on that note, let me tell you that Shelja has very kindly agreed to give us 3 copies of her book, and we have that right over here. Imagine, this is Shelja's first book. This was the second book, No Child Left Invisible. And this is a beautiful book about building safe spaces for children of all kinds across the world. So please put in your comments over here if you have a story to share, if you have any kind of experience that you would like to share, you have a question, please do put it in the comments here, and let's see who gets these books. So Anupama, let me ask you the next question. You mentioned, in fact, you've already given me part of that answer, saying that your children reach out to you and check on you. At Mama, how are you doing? And you give them 10 ways in which you're doing really well today. But are there days when you really wish for support of any other kind? Are there days when you need to reach out, seek help? Because as a parent, I'm sure you're constantly looking out for ways to help the children. You're seeking professional help, you must be reading articles day in and day out, you must be looking at books and all possible areas of sources of knowledge. But what about yourself?
So yes, that's true. But then, suppose you don't get it. So you don't end it there. Then you empower yourself more. For me, yes. You can't, again, if you're trying to build a positive narrative, you can't end at something, according to me, as trivial as, oh, I'm alone in this. It's fine. Then it's like, whatever I do, then the consequences are also mine. So I better do a good job. that's how I tell myself every day, whether I read, whether I make I'm very, particular about my to-do list for the next day, everything, and I'm very particular about the ticks because they better be there. Then of course I'm working, I have my, work commitments also. So everything keeps me busy, and yes, there are times like yesterday. In fact, yesterday I told Pranav that, next Navratra I'm going to be doing the Garba, and he was like, really? Because he couldn't imagine me with those sticks, and he was like, okay, this is a new mom. And of course I also have this thing, and of course, as I said, Nikita keeps telling me about the solo trip she's planned for me and all that. But that doesn't mean that on an average day that makes my efforts any less, or it brings in any frustration, or it brings in any, that factor that, oh, I wish I had people, somebody could just do this for me, or I could rest for 2 hours, or I could, because I have totally understood, because I see nowadays a lot of mothers finding time for themselves, traveling, getting together. I see that, but I know that I'm not in that space right now, and it doesn't affect me, honestly. I know that this is probably something I can look forward to maybe another 2 years when things are more settled. I'm probably going to take that trip, or I'm probably going to read this book, or I'm probably going to do certain things which I like, of course, because everything about you is on the back burner, right? Naturally, because then there are priorities. So because I take my priorities very seriously and I'm very passionate about them, it's not a chore or something which has fallen on my head and, oh God, now this and now that. As you said, I really read up a lot. That empowers me, because I know, okay, of course I follow my instinct. All three of us, I think, amongst ourselves, we are very instinctive, and we do a lot of things instinctively. But at the end of the day, you do need that support of what is happening in the world, what you need to read, what you need to know. I mean, when Pranav wanted to enter the fashion industry, my God, the kind of research I did on fashion industry, I mean, that was like, and I used to think, what am I doing? I mean, it's midnight and I'm reading up on fashion. So, so all this, I'm absolutely fine. And that is something I look forward to. And just because I am fine with it, I'm sure, I do feel that mothers do need that time out. Somebody needs to step in and give that time. That's very important. Right. But for me, I can wait for it. And I know that, in a couple of years more, things will be more settled, and I can, do that.
Let me ask you both, I'd like you both to talk about a little more about guilt. We're circling back to guilt, you already brought it up a little. Shelja, let's start with you. How does a parent cope with that guilt? I remember when my daughter was prescribed glasses, I took it very personally, and imagine that is something so minor. It's like, acha, maybe maine gajar nahi khilaya. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, that maybe I should have done this, diet theek nahi thi, ya kuch nahi tha. When there is something much more major and life impacting, how do parents deal with that guilt? How do you make it not about yourself?
It's just not parents, I think specifically moms.
Moms, yes, absolutely.
I would say guilt, I like to joke, guilt is the middle name for mothers.
Yes.
Anything happens, a child is diagnosed with autism, ADHD, learning disability, depression, anxiety, eating disorder, anything. Mothers somewhere blame themselves.
What did I do wrong?
Absolutely, what I did, something I must have done. And many times I've had conversations with moms who say, maybe that glass of wine I had during my pregnancy, or maybe that I did during the early years. So guilt is a very strong part, and I think it's very important to be aware of it. And for all moms, not just moms who have non-neurotypical kids or who have children with depression or anything, to be aware of it, because sometimes guilt can become so huge and that can impact us very negatively. Little guilt, I guess all of us have, and then you can't do away with it.
Yeah, I think we deal with it in a healthy way.
Yeah, little guilt is
like,
but too much of it is so strong, because then it starts defining you as a parent. Right? Then it starts defining you, and I've seen a lot of moms who don't take care of themselves because they feel anytime I take for myself,
it's taking
away from my child.
Yes.
And I always like to tell moms, and I think including Anupama I have told, that you need to take care of yourself. You really need to take care of yourself. I know she's a super mom.
Right,
The way she, I've
absolutely.
seen her, I've known her for many years. The way she's taken care of Pranav, Nikita, on her own is exceptional. However, it's so important to take care of yourself, to be self-compassionate and say, okay, this I did great, this I could not do in your to-do list.
Yeah.
It's you don't have to do each and
I
every
know,
one.
it's absolutely
Yeah,
crazy.
it's
And you
okay,
know
you
it
can
and you
do
still do it.
It's okay.
We
We see, like
spoke
I
about
said,
that.
finding perfection in imperfect. We are imperfect.
Yeah.
We're imperfect, right? So it's okay, and it's okay that we can let it go and enjoy what they really need. And I think you have given a lot to them is to have a mom who's happy and enjoys. And I think this is for all moms. What children need most, along with all the work you're doing, is that you're taking care of yourself. It's like the safety warning.
Absolutely. We
When you
spoke
take
about
advice.
this in the last episode of Let's Talk, in
Yeah.
fact, and we started with that analogy.
Yes.
And unless you have your own oxygen mask in place,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to help your
Absolutely.
children.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, I think that is a great point.
And
to
whatever
make.
you like to do, be playful, be funny, do your meditation, your yoga, go for walks,
Right.
go out with your friends, watch a movie, do anything without guilt. It's okay. You need to take care of yourself.
And I just again circle back to what you said earlier, that the problem is the problem and not me, not the child, not me as the mother.
Not at all.
Nobody's done anything wrong.
No,
and,
not at all. Absolutely not.
Right.
Yeah.
Anupama, was guilt ever
Yes, because as she said, she has told me that it's very, actually once you told me, that is the reflection I got from Nikita as well. That for me it's very important that you find. I mean, let's not use the word happy, which is very vague and has very vague connotation. You find you're doing well, and that's when I realize that both she and Nikita are on the same page on this, because they don't want a person who's
Brooding,
burning on
yeah.
both ends or something. No, I think I'm very patient and all, but then naturally it was taking a toll on my health, and I wouldn't still say I have this half an hour for me, but I hope the other mothers have it. But that's again, that's going to happen.
Right.
Because once you start looking at things in that manner, that okay, no, I will have this time for myself, I will work on certain areas, or I will work on certain things, I am going to read this book because the list is piling up. So, first, I would like to say that first accepting that I have to do this is the first step, and I have definitely reached that stage.
Yeah.
Great.
Good. And you play a role in that.
Right.
You have really played a role there apart from Nikita.
No, I think just this, like you said, your superstructure is your children right
Yeah,
now, and
true,
they're
true.
giving you the much needed support.
So there is a time when you really need to give in, and then there comes a time, yes, okay, I can take it this few steps back and kind of look
Yeah.
at things happening and give
Right.
myself
I
time.
think right now what Nikita needs most from her mother is a mom who's taking care of her.
Care of
Absolutely,
herself.
which is so true. You
Yeah.
know her so well.
Shelja, in all your outreach programs, in the dialogues that you have with various stakeholders, you talk about building this community which is all inclusive, which is supportive for children at all levels. How do you integrate a parent's wellness into this, and especially the one which is coming up next
Yeah,
week?
so we do a lot of workshops for parents. It could be parents of children who have been diagnosed with ADHD. We don't like to call it ADHD, we call them sparkling minds,
Right.
because they're really sparkling kids. Children, and we do workshop for parents young children on the spectrum. So various workshops we do, but I particularly want to talk about this event we have coming up. It's on 19th October, Saturday. It's in IIC, and we call it Imagine. Imagine is a beautiful word. Imagine is, we started this event last year,
Yes.
and the whole focus of Imagine is building a community of concern for children. So last year Imagine was on building emotionally safe spaces. This year Imagine is about parenting with courage, very much resonating
What
with
we are
what we're
talking
talking
about
about.
today.
And what it basically is about is that many times we think of parenting as what I do with my child, what you do with your children,
Yes.
what you do with your children, how important it is for all of us to come together. It's parents, it's teachers, it's mental health professionals, it's NGOs, any organizations that's working with children to come together so we can talk about how can we do better, be better for our children. So we are focusing on neurodiversity, where we're talking about how each child is wired differently and what we need to do to build inclusive practices in our homes, in our neighborhood, in our schools. Second session is on weaving stories of courage, again, parents.
Right.
And the third session is called Let's Commit, when we're talking about how we need to build a safer home for children in the cyber world. So we have an international cyber safety expert coming in. We also, as a society, I believe, in India, we really, taking care of our children. So
we are not.
No, we are not. I can say it very clearly, we are not taking care of our children. So we're talking about understanding the emotional needs, we're talking about keeping them safe from physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and coming together to build emotionally and inclusive spaces for children. So that is the focus. I'd like all parents, everybody to be there. And if you want more information, you can go to www.imaginewithcf.com.
We'll put a link also in one comment so that whoever's interested, and I'm sure this is of interest to all of us, can keep track of it.
So we can imagine together.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's aligned with what we're talking about right now. We're talking about parenting with courage, and that's exactly what we're talking about. We do have one question, Shelja. I'm going to address it to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little specific, but the way the mom ends her question is again, we're coming back to the whole point of guilt. Rachna says, my son is 7. Before he liked to be within himself, I'm assuming. It took time for him to open up, and now he ends up fighting with his friends when things don't go as he wants. Please help me to make him understand, where am I lacking?
Okay. Rachna, you're not lacking anywhere. Let's get that out of the way. Each child is wired differently. Now, some children, their social skills develop much faster. So they are able to socialize well, they know how to communicate, how to express themselves, how to make friends. But for some children, it comes a little later. So typically the complaint might be that my child fights. It's not that he is being malicious, or he's being vindictive, or he's full of anger. Many times he doesn't know how to connect with other children. So fighting becomes a way for him to connect with them because he's not able to express himself. Or sometimes it could be that he's struggling somewhere emotionally, and that's coming through in fighting. So it's very difficult for me to really understand, but let's make very sure that you are not doing anything wrong. What you can do instead is, rather than sending him out to play with a lot of children, invite one child home. Start with inviting one child from school or from the neighborhood, and plan the kind of play date with him, so that there are games or interactions or activities you have where he knows what he can do. So through gradually building up his skills, you can build those skills in him.
I think the key point, like you started the answer, is that
but it's
nothing to do with you, Mom.
Absolutely.
So my next question to you, Anupama, is we talked about community, building inclusive spaces and all. You mentioned that Pranav has so many vast interests, and one of the biggest struggles has been to find spaces that are inclusive, that are accepting, where he is comfortable. What do you want from everybody watching, from people who are in those spaces, where other children, those who are atypical, they would like to come and participate, be included in those activities or those spaces? What would you want from community in general?
So before I start about Pranav, like she was talking about Imagine, I heard 4 or 5 young people speak during the first session. Every word they said, it's imprinted in my mind. I mean, how could, like you said, how could actually all these challenges happen? How did society at large allow these to happen? I'm not trying to be the ambassador, because I'm sure they empowered young people and they don't need me, so to say, in that role. But that question had come in my mind.
As in who created these barriers?
Yes, and for them to, obviously that was a safe and secure space which they could speak. I wish they could speak on all platforms. I could. That's what stayed in my mind, for a long time. I still came to my mind when we were talking of that. So when it comes to Pranav, again, he has a condition, he has a disorder. Now, for some reason, he wants to do very different things. Earlier it was photography, then he wanted to, he was into mimicking people, and then definitely modeling. Modeling. Because, sorry, I'll take a minute. So we've had a very deep conversation, he and I, because we have these long conversations about why did you do that? Because it was very embarrassing at certain moments. Pranav in a corner making faces like Mr. Bean. Yeah, Mr. Bean.
Oh, Mr. Bean, okay.
Yeah. And he said, but like Mr. Bean, I didn't know what to say. So Mr. Bean doesn't know what to say, so he didn't say
faces.
So that again, I went back to that guilt again. My God, it never occurred to me. So now, we started with little sentences for every situation. Now we've reached a stage
I see, okay.
where he actually comes back to me. Okay, so if I say this, is it a white lie? It really makes me happy, because we went further from there, why do you act like Mr. Bean?
But it also makes us think about how complicated we make social interaction.
Absolutely.
That a child who is speaking from his heart has to think twice and has to check back.
Yes.
So he can't find anything and he's going like this. And I'm like, what are you doing? Naturally, I'm not a kind of mother who says, stop this. We actually have a conversation about why did you do this? And it was a revelation for me. Oh my God! For all these years, he didn't need to talk about needs. He needed to talk about what he feels.
Yeah.
I remember. So 2015 there was this incident, and then after that, there's nothing that he can't communicate. In words or in his journal. Now coming back to what he wanted. Now he went for this workshop, and they taught everybody modeling, but Pranav was hooked on. I can't tell you the entire. His entire persona changed. Earlier he thought that it's something to do with music. He's crazily involved into music, and he has a phenomenal knowledge about music. But then, when he showed us that screen in the mall, he said, this is what I want to do. And then he would send me pictures of billboards. I knew, for some reason, this is what he wants to do. So my journey has been people telling me, okay, Pranav has autism. Why? Are you crazy?
In the sense, why would you send him for money?
Why? Think of something more substantial, some vocational training, some this thing. Probably mother had some starry dreams, and probably she's making her.
You're pushing me.
Yeah, because that wasn't the case at all. Modeling and I were like, I was totally into books and a very different profile as a person I had, and as a, even my profession. I had nothing to do with modeling or movies or, even entertainment. Don't even watch TV. So when he wanted to do it, this is something that demoralized me. But I was not going to stop, because I was only following Pranav. And eventually I'd rather not talk about all the doors that closed, but something that, again, I always believe in that positiveness in the narratives. When I approached the modeling agency he's with right now, it had become a coming back from work, sitting with a cup of tea, start sending mails, start calling people, hey, I have a son. Honestly, I did that. And Pranav would know that, okay, she's written this mail, and obviously there are people. So I would tell him, look, I don't check my mails, Pranav, so people won't check their mails. So I called this, and as luck would have it, she answered, and then I went on explaining about, so this lady in question who is his modeling agency head now, and I said he has autism. So I loved her response. She said, well, is he tall? I said, yes, he is. She said, she didn't use the word good looking, thankfully. She said, is he presentable? Can he manage that? Can he emote in front of the camera? Can he walk the ramp? That's what I need to know. Autism or not autism, I don't.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so I was sold out.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's one that, okay, here your son has autism, we take him in. That's also something I love. She said, like everybody else, there's audition video. And I can't tell you how Pranav worked on an audition video. All we had to do was, hey, I'm Pranav Bakshi, this is my left profile. I know it by heart. I can send you audition videos now. This is my right profile. So we needed a white walls. As luck would have it, we don't have a white wall in the house. So we went to the terrace, we went downstairs, there were dogs, there were crows. I mean, every time we said, no, this is not good, I want to make one more. I want to. So and I actually felt that, my God, if it doesn't happen, I mean, then again I thought, let him deal with it. And he was in. And then also, there was a long interaction, they clicked some pictures and everything. So, honestly, paradoxically, from the fashion community, which is supposed to be very superficial and which has its own unrealistic standards, Pranav got acceptance. You know, but otherwise, I would say that, you know, people were very skeptical about what is she up to. I mean, why does she want her son to be a model? I had people who supported me, of course, a handful. I'm very thankful to them. Then again, after he got in, so this is something, I didn't take it personally, but I was very, you know, I thought a lot about this perception people have. So people have told me, you know, Pranav was very lucky because lots of mothers are trying to put their children into modeling. So what I wanted to say there, first of all, it's the difference between I have an agenda, oh look, I think Pranav is very tall, let me push him into modeling.
Yes.
Pranav is one guy who won't even let anybody touch a word of his TED talk.
Right.
You can try and tell him his TED talk.
Yeah.
He's independent, he knows his mind and he doesn't care if it's not as flowery or whatever. He's very eloquent when he writes. As anybody else, I mean, he has a mind of his own, so you can't really push him.
Right.
So he was on a cooking and baking curriculum and he hated that because he didn't like it. So then, I have tried to say that, I'm not undermining the importance of providence in our life or luck, but this guy has really worked hard. I mean, it was an unrealistic situation. I drew strength from my daughter. I mean, she would say that, Mom, he wants it, we will try till the end. And she herself gave up a pretty successful career in, fashion and modeling to go and, study public health. And now she's totally into autism. I mean, probably this is what her true calling was. And she knew how difficult and how tough the world is.
Right.
But while I got so much of, I'm very thankful. I mean, the agency people could look beyond his autism, that's all he said.
Yes.
And whenever he goes for a ramp walk, there is no special walk created for him. It's not that, hey, Pranav Bakshi with autism is coming and walking down and then the ramp happens. I watch him. The choreographers are just so nice. They all understand. End of the day, there's no special this thing for Pranav. He has to, and I love the way he stays back. He's doing the entries and exits in his mind left, because for everybody it's like turn here, turn there, do this, do that, and it's done. The seasoned models. And this guy is learning on the job and he does everything what others do. We are there before time, we stay back, he does it in his mind and he keeps writing in his journal because he knows that is going to take care of his anxiety, and he does it. And he does it because somebody allowed him to do that. So we as a community as large need to not, undermine efforts by thinking, okay, this was luck.
Right.
At the same time, I feel all of us in this special community should not get bogged down with labels our children have. If they want to do something, they will do it.
Right.
I mean,
awesome lessons there. Just put it together so well.
They need to be allowed. When Pranav was into photography, I didn't know where it would lead.
Sure.
I mean, he and I every Sunday would be marching here and there. He's taking pictures and we started calling it photo walks, and it was so fancy.
It's also important to understand that for some like Pranav, he knew what he wanted very early.
Yeah.
For a passionate
That's
like
true.
golf
That's true.
or photography
Yes,
or
true,
fashion. For some parents, they might be listening to this and thinking, but my child doesn't.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Take your time, and that's true for all of us.
For
Not
all of
just
us.
for
We find our
children
zones.
who are
Yeah.
neurotypical. For some, it takes a longer time to find that sparkling
Right.
moment. But let children take the lead. Like
Yes.
Anupama said,
Yeah.
we can't have the agenda, I want my child to
Yeah.
do this.
Or put them into those, again, stereotypes that, like vocational training.
Because I've
at this
seen it
time,
with
that
Pranav. He
time.
was so unhappy in us, following a curriculum which was not,
Which was not him.
He would have been a failure. And I don't like this word at all, but he
But
would
I
not
understand
have
what
been
you're
succeeded.
saying.
Yeah.
He would have
The
been
society
happy
designs
there.
that,
Unhappy.
right? The criteria
Unhappy.
for failure, what is
Yeah.
failure?
Absolutely. And the other thing which stayed with me from what you said was that the fashion industry did not
Yes.
they looked beyond
Yes.
his autism, because that's just one part of it. Like you said, that one story, we cannot concentrate and
It was
focus
so
on that one
heartwarming
story.
this time when he did the Benetton walk. I mean, they're all seasoned models, and one particular very senior model, he was ahead of him. And he could, I mean, I wonder if they actually know what is autism. And maybe he, no, I guess because he spoke to me, maybe he'd read about, whatever the situation. So all these models have the cue sheets. I love the way he drew something, and he wrote so many seconds, there are so many seconds. So there are people who reach out to us.
Right.
It's just that we also need to sometimes shed our inhibitions, and of course I'm very skeptical also. I mean, because initially when Pranav started this modeling thing, and he wanted to be, and even from within the community and even from everywhere, I mean, I'm glad I didn't get bogged down, because I always try to find some way and something positive, and actually Pranav was leading the way. I was not doing something I wanted to do. I was just following my child, because end of the day he's the one walking the land. I can't imagine, I mean, even with all my skills doing that. And it's not easy, because you have to change quickly, you have to remember stuff, then you have to walk and probably look like the Greek god they're all supposed to be.
But
and
Anupama,
the
hats
attitude.
off to you. I have to say, I mean, you're giving him all the credit, but the root has to be you.
Maybe a child feels empowered because the child knows that there's somebody there. Like when Pranav did the TED talk, he felt that I should be somewhere behind. So, I didn't say no, Pranav, that's not happening. So then we had a talk. Is it important? We said no. So when we went to Mumbai, I wasn't there, and I really believe that he spoke very well, because I could see from the reaction of the audience, that he spoke very well. So again, they move from strength to strength because they feel there's somebody supporting them.
No, absolutely. I'm sure that is there at the core. And honestly, I mean, it's really incredible how you brought that about. And Shelja, I have to say the same to you as well, about you and to you, that it's really wonderful work that you're doing, and you've been a source of strength for all of us so many times at Momspresso, and once again today.
And a source of strength for me.
I get so
So
much
many
strength from
years.
just listening to Anupama, the work that Momspresso is doing. Can I ask one message
Please,
that I really
please.
want, because we talk about the World Mental Health Week,
Yes.
and I think, and what you talk about, let's talk,
Yes.
and it's so important that we are having these conversations here in Momspresso, in schools, colleges, everywhere we need to talk more. Because depression, anxiety, or even autism, or any of these so-called problems are actually not problems. The thing is this, the core problem is the shame behind it. The shame, and shame thrives when there's secrecy, there's silence, and there's judgment. And if you're able to put that aside and have more conversations, then a lot of the suffering and the pain and the hardship we talk about, we won't need to talk about that.
And I
So
think we're
keep-
all responsible for
Yes.
creating that kind
So
of
let's
environment.
keep talking.
What keeps us silent is probably the responses which we assume will come, or the judgments. This
Yeah.
is what I have seen.
Absolutely. I think on that note, I'm going to say thank you to both of you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
Thank
joining
you
us
To
today.
both of you.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.